Delighted to have such an eminent composer with us today. I'm not going to give you much about his background because he's going to talk about that in his presentation. So I don't want to give you too much that is going to be in the presentation already. But suffice to say, we are going to be hearing from somebody who has a passion for music, a passion for creating music that is relevant for ordinary people, a passion for engaging with culture at a local level and an international level, and a passion for social justice. All of these things you will hear in the presentation as they come through. I think you will also be surprised, as some of you will have been hearing the advert music just as we've been sitting here, how much of an impact Warren has had nationally with the music that he's composed as advert jingles and so on. You'll already be familiar with his music from having heard it on the television, on the radio, and so on. So can I, on behalf of UKZN, of our Dean who is here, we're very pleased that you can be here, Dean Hlongwa, and on behalf of the DVC and the Vice Chancellor, we welcome you and thank you for joining us for this lecture. Even those who are joining us online, thank you for joining us. So, Warren, welcome to you. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I really love this picture, you know, because what this picture really represents, it's a visualization. And you actually have to see yourself, are you standing at the top of the mountain or are you standing at the bottom of the mountain? And so, as a composer, visualizing music is one of the things that I want to share with you today. So I do love that picture. I want to first give some thanks. Professor AJ. Professor AJ, I always just call him AJ, and he is probably one of the kindest, warmest, compassionate people I've ever met. And the thing is that the other side of him is this deep, deep intellect and his insight I respect so much. You know, he's the type of person that when you have a question that needs to be answered that's difficult, he'll give you more questions that will lead you to the answer. So thank you, AJ. You're an amazing person, you know. And to the Dean, thank you so much for the honor to be here. Prof. Ngubani, oh my goodness. To have the historian in the house. So if I say anything wrong, don't give me any dirty looks, okay? But you're more than welcome to tell me later that you should have said something, you know, not that. I also want to thank everybody, Friends of the Arts, that are here. You know, one of the things that I wanted to say is that, you know, I'm very grateful to the Zulu Nation in that I came here in 1987, and since 1987, I basically have immersed myself into Zulu culture from day one. And the thing that I'm really thankful is that I'm actually a much, much better person for being in Zulu culture, you know, and so I'm actually grateful to the Zulu Nation for making me a better person. I think if I continued to live in Canada or somewhere else, I probably wouldn't be the same type of person with the same values, the same understanding, you know. I think it's important to understand honor, the purpose of cherishing ideals, people, the concept of respect between people, no matter who you are. There has to be a level of respect for each other. So I just want to kind of warn you that in my lecture, I inherited that concept of being a dreamer. So when I speak, you're going to have to kind of put your intellectual seatbelt on, because I go all over the place. I'm not going to go from step A to step B. I'm going to kind of go all over the place, and I'll make some points. And I think you're going to like them. So let me introduce you to where I'm coming from. I'm a composer, and I've been a professional composer for between 35 and 40 years, which means that I've made a living, and every day I've been composing for over 30 years, 35 years. So there's not a whole lot of people who can say that, you know. It's a rare thing. So I think I've gained a lot of information, concepts on this journey of being a composer, which I'm going to share today. But also, I'm a producer, and I wear a lot of hats. And I think that's really important in these times. So I'm a composer. I'm also a producer. I'm an audio engineer, which you found out earlier. A desktop publisher. I'm a writer. I'm a copywriter. I'm a lyricist. I'm an activist. I'm a translator specialist. I'm a behavior change communication expert. And the one thing that's in the true light of a composer, I can say I can play all the instruments in the orchestra very badly. It's very important. So when you compose for 35 years, it means that you've got to compose for anything. I've composed music for shoes. I've composed music for spinal injuries. I've composed music for lots of national brands. So when somebody says, can you compose this? You say, yes, you know. But I'm going to explain, there's a lot of things that are a prerequisite to saying yes. So I really like this concept here, beginning, middle, end. That's our life. We live a life that we have a beginning, we have a middle, and we have an end. And so composition is really the same, that it has a beginning, middle, and an end. I want to share a story, you know. The way that I compose my symphonies, I have a term which I call reverse engineering. And this is a term that I learned from reading a book called The Japanese Conspiracy. And what happened was with the Japanese conspiracy, after Hiroshima, the Japanese wanted to have revenge. And they wanted to have revenge, but they couldn't do it military-wise. So what they did was that they sent all their young people to America, and when they were there for many, many years, they bought every appliance, they bought every hi-fi, they bought everything, and they sent it back to Japan. And what they did was that the same product, they took it apart. And when they were taking it apart, they go, oh, we can improve on this. We can make this part cheaper. We can make this thing like so much better. And they went through all these products, and they made them better. And then what they did is that when they had a better product, they sold it back to the market in America for 10, 15 years. And what did they do? They wiped out their competition. There used to be big companies called Westinghouse, big American names, which were all replaced by Toshiba, Yamaha, Nissan, Toyota, even the cars. All of that was really based on a revenge method, based on a very cool concept which we call reverse engineering. And what's really important about reverse engineering with composition, when you have a beginning and a middle and an end. So what I usually do, when I wrote King Shaka, I did the first, well actually, I'll say another one. I did the very first scene, and then I go right to the very last scene. And so I spent a lot of time composing the ending. So everything that I do between the beginning and the end, I know where I'm going. And with music, music is not a thing where you compose music with no destination. Do you ever get in your car and drive somewhere without a map or without a GPS? You know where you're going. And it's the same with composition. You have the beginning, the middle, and you know the ending. So when I compose music, I always know on every level what the destination is. And when you're talking about King Shaka, you've got to know what the ending is. And you got to know every aspect, historically, physically, spiritually, everything about him, so that when you do the ending, everything makes sense. Because the one thing, the disadvantage, or actually it's an advantage, The advantage about not being Zulu and writing on King Shaka is that if I make a mistake, I'm going to have a lot of people who don't like me. Means that when I do this ending, it really has to resonate as being the truth of who King Shaka was. So this concept of reverse engineering is really, it's a masterful concept that when you do any project, always think about the ending first. Even in your life, you know, you're here at university and you're thinking about the beginning as now, but you really should be thinking, what am I going to do after university? Because that is more closer to the ending, you know? So if you're not thinking about your final destination, it's not as strong as always having a clear destination. So that was a really great thing. And so the other thing I realized too is that whatever you do, you really have to have a deep sense of what you're doing and a very deep sense of where you're going. Right, so my career is broken into 3 areas. I did a lot of TV and radio, then I did communication programs for government, and now I'm what you would call an urban classical composer. If you look that up, you probably won't find it. And the reason I say urban classical is that my influences, my things that inspire me are not other classical composers. It's many, many things. And I tell people, you know, when I did a piece of music, they said, well, where did you get inspired from that? I said, I actually was inspired by a Siberian punk band, a band that's from Siberia that sings in an indigenous language. And it was so amazing because they broke a concept for me. It's like they wrote this song that was an amazing song. And you know what the translation was? When we go to our friend's house, we have a really good time. Next line, when we go to our friend's house, we really have a good time. That was the verse, that was the lyrics for the whole song. And it was this amazing song. And it made me realize that we get trapped into thinking one way, you know? And this is where your creativity and being free to be influenced by good things, not bad things, to be influenced so that, okay, when I write lyrics, I don't have to say that Bill rhymes with Dill and because Bill met Jill. I mean, those are, no. You don't have to think in rhymes. So all my lyrics to my symphonies, they're all about the content. There's no trying to rhyme or make things, especially because it's in Zulu. So it was kind of stupid to think, you know. I've never heard Zulu music where there's an emphasis of trying to make things rhyme, like in Western music, you know. So when I speak, I really speak a lot in analogies. So today I'm going to share with you about how I see music. The thing that's really different, I think, about when I try to compare myself, a lot of people listen to music, but me, I see my music. And that's what I'm going to share with you today, is seeing music. So when I see music, I look at it multidimensionally. I can see music from left to right. I can see music at the bottom. I can see it at the top. And I can see music far away coming closer. So if you ever had the opportunity to see one of my symphonic works, it's not music where it's just music. You can actually visualize through the music that something is coming towards you musically. And then there it's in front. And it's not because I'm composing music because I hear that, it's because I see that. So it has that impact on the music, being multidimensional. So what I was saying earlier is that my first thing I started to do, when I came here in 1987, I worked at the Playhouse as a sound engineer, and I applied for permanent residence. And when I got my permanent residence, that day I quit, and I started my own company. And then I started to do radio commercials. And one of the things that I really learned about doing in radio that I want to share, there's a word there called retention. Now, as a composer, as a writer, retention is really, really important. Because when it comes to music, one of the worst things about music is when it goes on and 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 on. Because you've gone way past the, what is it, the still by date. You know, it's stale. You know, so retention is really critical. And the analogy that I have is that if you're driving down the highway and there's a billboard on the side of the highway and you fly by it, what information did you retain? And you can tell a really bad billboard because it'll say Jojo, phone number, email address, this, that, his girlfriend lives at this street, and it just goes on and on. How are you going to retain any of that? You know? So when it comes to music, melodies, everything, there's a level of what we call retention. So you have to really think about that when you compose music. Oh, let me go back. So this advert, this is an old advert, when Aquele water, do you guys know that company? You drink Aquele water? So when they first came on the scene, I think it was quite a long time ago, I got to do their first jingle. And so let me play you this advert and let's see what you can retain from it.
Sparkling water, pure flavor.
Enjoy the pure taste and experience the burst of flavor.
Sparkling water, pure flavor.
Be cool and let your lips quench your thirst.
Sparkling water, pure flavor.
Anytime, anywhere, get your sparkle bag.
Sparkling water.
Experience the pure flavor of Aquele sparkling water in your life.
Sparkling water, pure flavor.
Okay, so what were you able to retain? Sparkling water, pure flavor, Aquele. Now, all of that is things that you should have been able to retain, even hearing it from the very first time. And what's really important, that everything you learn here, once again, I jump around. This is something I was going to say later, but has anybody seen that Bob Marley movie? The one that came out in the last year or so? Anybody? Nobody likes Bob Marley here. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll talk about Bob Marley later then. So when I compose music in my symphonies, and they're in Zulu, and the thing is that when you study as a non-Zulu the language, I always tell people, if you really want to have an experience about Zulu culture, watch The Weatherman. I mean, as a non-Zulu, you know, The Weatherman, when he's doing it, it's an amazing thing, you know? And so the fact that the Zulu language is so beautiful and it's so poetic and it describes what is happening, you know, it's always about, you can't say something unless you're saying, well, it's because of this. So when I wrote the lyrics for my symphonies, you all know Dr. Sosi Damini, and he said something to me, it was quite funny, because with my lyrics he said, Warren, that's kind of like kindergarten language. And his point was that, and my counter to that was that, yes, I agree, but my counter is that most people, they're only going to hear this once. They're going to come to the concert, they're going to hear what I have to say, and it has to be simple so that they understand what's being said here. So it comes down to all this experience, retention, what can you actually understand? So as a person who's not Zulu, it took many years of really understanding concepts. It's not just about the words, it's about what is the concept. So even when you do a translation, you're not actually translating the word, you're actually translating the concept. So all the lyrics in my symphonies are about Zulu concepts. So that's why it's true what Dr. Sazi says. It's true. but it's also in my defense. It's really when people, do you understand that? And it's really weird for me, because I don't speak Zulu, okay? And I'm going to explain that. I'm not good with languages. So it's really a strange experience for me that when I hear the music performed in Zulu, it's just like, oh my goodness. And it's like, and I'm always saying to my friends, do you understand what they're saying? Oh yeah, absolutely, you know? So it's really important with the words to understand from a point of view of retention. Okay, I have another philosophy here that, you know, with music students, do we have students in here today? We got a couple of students? Oh, great, great. You know, the thing is that one of the things that we have to learn, and I've learned this, is that in university you have to perfect your craft. You really have to perfect your craft. And when you perfect your craft, then the money comes. But we have a problem where a lot of people are expecting the money, but there's no perfection in the craft. See what I'm saying? It's like, it's a real nice analogy. You ask this guy, the plumber, to come and fix your pipes at your house. And the first thing he says to you, he doesn't say, where's the job? He says, where's the money? I want my money. And then he doesn't even fix the pipes right. And he leaves. And it's the same thing as an artist. You have to perfect the craft. When you perfect your craft, the money will come. You know, and so what I did when I was at your young age, I went to all the agencies and I said, I'm going to do a pilot. I'll write the lyrics, I'll write the copy, I'll do everything. I'm going to do it for free. I'll do it for free. So how could they say no when I was doing it for free? And what it did is that it gave me a lot of experience, you know, that you've got to actually get lots and lots of experience at what you do before you start demanding, okay, where's the money? And it's a really important thing because I think it's an attitude that has to be broken in society. It's actually more important, the craft first, money second. But unfortunately, a lot of people, it's money first, kind of not so good craft after it. So as a student, you really have to perfect your craft. And I had this, the advantage that I have about doing things for free, once I did a pilot for a big agency, and I did it all for free. And what happened was that the client loved it. And the fact that I did it for free, they never asked me what it was going to cost. And so when they came in, they said, oh, the client loves it. And this is a national, international client. And they say, what is it going to cost? I said, it's going to cost you 50,000 rand. They go, what? What? I said, no, if you want it, that's what it's going to cost. Because I knew that they were going to charge the client 5 million. So why would I give them something for 1,000 rand when I know? And so, but the point is that I couldn't charge that money unless I had perfected the craft. You know, yeah, you can say I took advantage, but the thing is that as a composer, you got to make money. And when that opportunity arises, you have to have a really great product, and they paid, and they loved it, and it worked out really well, you know? So it's kind of like really perfect your craft, and the money, I guarantee you, it comes. It's like the opportunity where I did so many free pilots that didn't go anywhere, they were good, but I tell you, keep doing that, and then that day came when the big cheese said, we love this, and I got to make money. And it wasn't, the 50,000 wasn't just for that one advert, it was for the other 450 that I didn't get paid, you know? And it's all really about perfecting your craft. So, the next thing is I did a lot of TV, which I'm not going to go into. I did game for like 13 years, so you always win at game. Same thing was that with game, we were doing 34 commercials in 1 month at every Christmas, and 8 radio adverts in 4 countries. So all this, doing that amount of work, if you haven't perfected your craft, you can't do that. So this is where the time is really perfect your craft. So when that day comes, you can show, I can do this. You know, it's one thing to do one commercial, it's another thing to do 34 of them, you know? So you really got to perfect your craft. Right, next thing, I'm gonna try to speed up here because I wanna get into the good stuff. So my next stage was doing government work. I did work for almost every department of government. So I can tell you I know a lot about government. Every department, how it works, everything. So I was what you would call a behavior change communication specialist. And the first job that I got was doing the 2010 World Cup. And the reason I was talking about this is that for me to get that job, it just wasn't about knowing about music, but it was also being strategic. So as artists and composers, musicians, you just can't say, I'm a musician. You gotta say, I'm a strategist. I'm a person who thinks. Because it may be a bit of surprise, but there is actually a lot of people who don't like to think. Sorry, it's true. But as artists and as creatives, we are thinkers. We have to be strategists. We have to think of it, if I draw a picture with no strategy involved, no one's gonna buy that picture. But if I draw a picture of the dean and it looks just like her, and it's just this amazing picture, then it's got a purpose, it's got a strategy. She's gonna pay me 500 Rand for this picture. So you have to be very strategic in your art. It's perfected, it's strategic, you're thinking about what you're doing. It's like Melvin goes to a gig. He knows what the parameters are. He doesn't just show up and, well, where's the piano and who, you know, there's strategy, there's all sorts of things that are involved when you do music. And so when I talk about behavior change communication, that is, the gift of that is playing something that actually changes your view or your opinion about something. So I noticed when I came in here, I saw the GBV protest. And so it's quite interesting. I did a GBV campaign many years ago where I designed this concept of having 50 taxis coming from Wentworth playing a radio drama about GBV every morning and then playing one going back. So let me just play a little bit of this so I can drink some water. Oops.
Do the right thing.
The right thing.
Do the right thing. Do the right thing.
The right thing.
Do the right thing. Do the right thing.
The right thing.
Do the right thing. Do the right thing.
The right thing.
Do the right thing. Do the right thing.
The right thing.
I know you say how much you love me. Can't you see the pain in my eyes? So hard to hide the scars deep inside, deeper than you know. I believe in you and me, 'cause we love each other. We can work it out.
Okay. So that was a gender-based violence campaign where I designed the concept, the words, and the slogan, which is do the right thing. Just do the right thing. So the thing is that even when you hear my classical music, all of this is incorporated into my classical music, the concepts, everything. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is like Okosi FM. Everybody knows Okosi FM. And I had the good fortune in the late 90s, there was a guy named Kansas City, and I got to do some radio adverts for him. This guy he was a rock star. When he walked into the room, he was the most charismatic rock star. His name was Kansas City. They got a big picture of him in the boardroom. And So I did a little bit of work back then with Radio Zulu, and then I decided that I need to work for KwaZulu-Natal, the only white guy probably ever who's ever worked with them. And I said, okay, I'm going to invite all the management to come to my studio. So this is, once again, you're bringing in strategy, you're bringing in all sorts of things. So they're there, their whole management. And I said to them, you know, what I'm going to play you is going to sound good. But if you go to any other studio, whatever they play you, it's going to sound good. So what is the difference? I said, it's not about how it sounds, it's about how it makes you feel. And they all went, yeah, that's right. And I started a relationship with them because they understood that. It's not just about what you hear, but how it makes you feel. So I ended up, they had a program called Guza Guza, which was their primetime soapy. I did all that music. I did that theme song, Guza Guza, Guza Guza. There we go. And of course, it's Kirk. So, and you would know that it was me, but I wrote all their music for that. So I created a good relationship. So that was a real important lesson there about, it's about making people feel right with your music. Now I'm going to introduce something which I call my visualization techniques. So what happened, I was teaching at the recording studio at Durban University, Westville, and Malvin was with me. Many, many years ago. And one of the things that I discovered is that all my students were Zulu. And when you talk about a recording studio, the dialogue, the words are really weird. You have like compressors, you have thresholds, you have compressor 10-to-1 ratios, you have, it's a language, it's a technical language that's very difficult. So I'm thinking, how am I going to teach a recording studio bypassing the concept of language? And so what I did was that I created a visualization of the recording studio. Okay, this is how you get in. And when you're in, this is what you can do. And when you get to this part, this is what you can do. And you know, these students, they could visualize all of this without even worrying about the words. And I said, once you're there, you don't have to worry. Just play around, figure it out. And within weeks, we're talking not semesters, within weeks, they're saying, Warren, come here, listen to this. And they're playing. You know what happened? They became fearless. They weren't scared of the technology. They just became fearless because they could visualize what to do. If you have to overthink something, it cripples you. It makes you like, oh, I can't do that, or something's going to go wrong. Where it actually, they became fearless. And all of them were just doing brilliant work in a very short time, you know. So that was really great. So that was the beginning of understanding visualization. Now, this is my story about Joseph Shabalala. He was a good friend of mine. And we were at his house. Now I've got 4 points that I'm talking about visualization techniques. So that first one is that I knew I had something good with those students. The proof was there. They became fearless. The second thing, so it was at Joseph's house, we're having supper, and there's a lot of people there, and the subject came up, do you speak Zulu? I said, no, I don't speak Zulu. And this guy was very offended, you know, and Joseph, we've been good friends for a long time. So I said, Joseph, can I tell him the story? He says, yeah, tell him the story. So, okay, let me tell you this story, because he wasn't really happy. And I said, you know, I don't speak Zulu. Even as a child growing up in Canada, I couldn't speak French. They tried to force me to speak French. I couldn't do it. Language is not my language. It's not my skill. I like Sam, Bill, Joe. I mean, easy things, you know. And so language is not my thing. So I said to this guy, I said, you know, I record a lot of radio dramas for KwaZulu-Natal, and I use all the best actors in the country. They're the best. And when they come to the studio, I get to direct and produce, record all these things. And the thing is that all of them know that I don't speak Zulu, but when we were doing these productions, I was correcting them. And the thing that really was weird was that I was always right. And one day after doing this for many times, they said, you got to tell us how you're doing this. This is too weird. Because we know you don't speak Zulu, but you're correcting and you're always right. And this guy was really listening now. And I said, you know, what happened? The reason is that I've been living here since 1987, and I'm exposed to Zulu culture 8 hours a day, ever since I've been here. And so I know every possible situation. I know every type of voice, type of character. I know that. And so when you are performing, I can see that you're not playing the part, because I don't understand the words, but I can visualize, okay, I know what this should sound like in this situation, and you sound like you're reading. You sound like you're bull dusting this thing. And I said, it's because I can visualize what is happening. So this guy was like quite amazed. I said, you know, I've absorbed Zulu culture to the point where I can understand and do these corrections, which is really great. Just because I can't speak the language doesn't mean I'm disrespectful. Doesn't mean that I don't love the culture. You know, and this was a very serious subject, because you have to think about it. Even writing music for the royal family, I've known King for a long time. I know all his children. And it's a real, you know, it's a great thing being a witness to Zulu culture and having the blessing of the king saying, you know, because I would come to the prince and say, would the king be okay if I said this? When I speak about Inkabai, I'll talk about this. Would he be okay with me saying this? Because it's really like what I said before, being a non-Zulu, you can't get it wrong. When I'm doing something in the arts, talking about Zulu culture, I can't get it wrong. So it's really important to always to get it right. So this conversation with this guy was a real important thing. I guess what I'm saying is that some people, why are you writing music for the royal family? You're not Zulu, you know? And I'm not saying that's the mainstream thought, but it is there. And it's good for me because it says, Warren, you better get it right. Because if you don't get it right, and this is what I was explaining to that guy, that when it comes to respect, you really have to do everything that you can to be respectful. So with my music, and when I talk about the stuff, I'm telling you, when I start speaking about Inkabai, I know Inkabai. I know a lot about her. I've studied her for years and years, and I've had many, many conversations with historians, the royal family, many people, you know. And so if I write music, I know from a point of view of respect, it has to be right, you know. So that was a good story about Joseph. Another thing, I got two more. I don't know if you ever heard of a program on Nkosi FM called Ngimi Dada Siyazi Dada. It was a children's program. Okay, that's my program. And it was amazing that when I went and saw the director, I got the project from the Department of Transport. I went to the director, which I know is an amazing woman, and she says, Warren, this is going to change everything. This is going to change everything. And I was like, yeah, I think so too. And the thing about this program is that it achieved 2,731,000 people were listening to that Saturday morning slot. It was the highest listened to program on Nkosi FM and nationally. And there's only really, the biggest reason why is that when I spoke to a lot of people, I said, are you listening to the program? And they actually said they don't actually listen to the program. They actually are in the program. They visualize what is actually happening. That program was wild. This one guy, he would do all the wrong. You have the taxi rank, and there's honking and screeching of cars, and he's there, he almost gets hit, and he's doing all the wrong stuff. People weren't listening to that. They actually could visualize being right in the taxi. So this concept of visualization, it works. It's really, really an important thing as an artist, because I can tell you 2,731,000 people visualize what those two ducks were doing. And the government forced me to pay for my own monitoring and evaluation throughout the whole province, which was a bit of a drag. I had to pay for it out of my own pocket. But I did, because I believed in it. So in this survey that was all the way across the province, 86% of every concept was retained. Remember that word? Retained by these children. That's staggering. And it's all because they could visualize. They didn't get the information in the way. They could see what that guy was doing wrong and what he was doing right. So when they answered the question, they could visualize the situation and they understood it. Right, now we're into Zulu territory from here onwards. That was my introduction. It's a bit of a long one, but I think it's important that you understand where I'm coming from. So when we get to this, there's a backstory. So I'm gonna play, this piece we're gonna start with Inkabai. So this is called The Birth of Inkabai. That's what the music's called. So what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to play this thing, and I just want you to close your eyes. You don't have to worry about it, because everyone's eyes are going to be closed. And what I'm going to request from you, I don't want you to listen to the music. I want you to see the music. So I'm going to ask you what you saw after we hear this. So this is an exercise, probably your first time ever, where I'm going to ask you to see the music, okay? So I'm going to play it, and then we're going to talk about it after. You can close your eyes. It makes it much easier. I'm not forcing you, but it does make it easier. What happened here? Sorry, one sec. Come on now. One sec. Okay, I'm going to pause it. Unfortunately, it's very distorted. I'm not sure why, which makes it a little bit harder to visualize with all the distortion. But let me ask, what did you see? Any volunteers? Don't be shy. Yes. Come on. You can't be shy. Okay, please, yes. Talk to me. Where? Yeah, you can just stand up and shout. Yeah, he's coming with the microphone, so sorry, hopefully Kurt will come back and try to sort out the sound.
Sure. Hi, Warren.
Yeah.
What I heard, I didn't see it.
Okay, now, no, You have to tell me what you saw.
No.
You can't, now that defeats the whole thing. If we're talking about red, you can't say green.
Okay.
Tell me what you saw.
Sharp. What I saw was something impossible. So I heard words or sounds that were like not me. Not. I listen to music. I'm an artist. I literally listen to music.
Okay, let me just jump. Okay, just turn that down.
Okay.
Let me just jump in here. Because I want to try to get much feedback from many people. So try to be real quick. Okay, thank you. Did you have something there?
Hi.
Yeah,
I found the music very expansive, a lot of kind of space. It seemed wide. And then my mind went to a kind of underwater scene. Okay. So I was imagining, different kinds of, some of the sound sort of felt grand and slow, like a whale, and then maybe a sort of like, gannets diving into the water to get the sardines.
I like it.
And, the different energies and I've sort of imagined that scene in my mind.
Great. Who else? I'm not trying to be rude. I just want to get like quick answers. Go ahead, Dean. You can shout. Do we need the mic? Yeah, for people maybe online. So whoever has the mic, you need to be a runner.
Hello?
Yes,
Okay.
Go ahead.
I saw someone standing on an empty field looking at the long river, and there were a lot of birds. And that's
Beautiful.
that.
Great. Keep going. Let's just see. It's very interesting. Yes?
Hi.
Hi.
I saw something completely different. I saw to put it in basic words, Wakanda tribes fighting each other, and it's all based off of like a love story over a girl. Yeah, I know it's really weird, but
No, it's not. You're very close. Awesome. Anybody else? So just do a couple more, and then I'm going to jump in here because I'm.
Hi, Mr. Warren.
Yes.
Okay, so what I saw was since I recently watched Ushaka Ilembe, it was more like I was seeing the valleys and the mountains of KwaZulu, and also the people who were hunting as the beat goes on. Yeah, I see that more something like action or something. Yeah, that's all I saw.
Awesome. Let's bring the mic to the front because I don't want to make a big. We'll get you next time. Just bring it to the front here to the dean. I want to see what she's got to say here. She's dying to say. Then I'm gonna jump in here.
Thank you very much, Warren. I was visualizing Zulu warriors going out and going to the war. So as the music was playing, that is what I was visualizing. I think similar to the experience or what the lady at the back was actually sharing.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So the thing is that in this piece here, this is the story about her birth. So people who are not Zulu may not know the story. So King Jama you have the birth where you have this it's, you know, you have a very beautiful introduction. The women are coming around and they're seeing a very historical birth. And then after this beautiful music, you start to hear this. And that's the visualizing, is that you had many people who wanted to kill them. Because in Zulu tradition, if twins are born, one had to be killed. So you have a whole bunch of people in that area, in the community, who are just trying to get at her and take her away. So you're hearing this, and you're hearing all this stuff, and then what happens? You hear, boom, boom, boom. Now who's that? That's King Jama. And if you knew the words, he says, who are you to take my seed away from me? Who are you? And then they fight him, because they're not going to give up. They keep fighting, and they do this, all this music. And what happens? He comes back again. Ah, da, da. No, these are my children. This tradition is now broken. So all that music that you're hearing and everything, it follows the visualization of seeing the child being born, being surrounded by love, and then the ones who've come to take and to kill the child. Now, what's really important about all of that, that had a profound impact on Nkubai. She never forgot that her father broke that tradition to save her life. So, my next one is, I think it's a good idea, I'll just do this. Who is Nkubai? Do you really know who she is? You know, one of the things that really makes me angry is that when you look at history and you go back 200 or 300 years, who is one of the, probably the greatest woman that's ever existed in the last few hundred years? You know who it is? Nkubai. She was brilliant beyond words. If you research and you understand her, see, this goes back to that I can't write music about Nkubai unless I know her soul, that I know everything about her, what she does. So these, I guess you guys can read that. So what I'm about to play you is totally based on these 3 sentences, which I believe are from her praise poem. Right, okay. Says, she had the deceptive appearance of being a shy person who remained unobtrusive. So you can't look at her as just being one person or one type of a person. She was shy, she was unobtrusive. So that's a major characteristic of her. Then it says, like a marsh, her presence was inviting, but her victims soon got themselves bogged down and died. So what does that mean? It means don't mess with Nkubai. This is a woman 200 years ago. Even today, what woman can have that status? Don't mess with me. Very incredible. Then the last sentence is, oh, let me just see, did I not put it here? Oh yes, here we go. So when Nkubai spoke, monarchs, emperors, and commoners alike listened in silence. Now what's so amazing about it, I myself only know of one person in history that I know of that happened, and that's Job in the Bible. When Job entered the room, they went silent. Nobody else that I know of, where the room went silent. But Nkubai, silent. That's amazing. If you think and you have that awesomeness as somebody in history that can walk into the room and everybody's completely silent. It's amazing. And what's really incredible, she survived in a cutthroat environment where her decisions were questioned with cynicism because of her sex. So in the context of all of this greatness, she was surrounded by people who basically wanted to cut her throat. If you think about it, that's very, very harsh. So all of these concepts and understanding her character goes into this piece of music that I wrote. So hopefully, it's not, did Kurt ever come back, or is Kurt on the Enterprise? I guess, okay. I'm hoping it's not going to be all distorted. But let's see what happens. You see, that to me is my picture of Inkabai, where it's dee-dee. You don't see her, but then it's Inkabai, unstoppable, towering, a picture of strength, absolute strength and power, that when she's like Inkabai, everybody is like, yes. Then, unfortunately, I can't go into all the words, but the whole story, it talks about what she did for the nation. And I had this conversation. Now, this was written in 2018, so going up to that, I had this conversation with Prince Longaniso. And what I was saying was that because Inkabai was the mastermind behind King Shaka's assassination, a lot of people hated her. And even up to 2018 when I was doing it, it was a concern. People would say, why are you writing about her? You know? And I'm an activist. I don't, you know, when I have a thought. So I said to him, the way I look at this is that Inkabai enabled for Shaka to even be born. She enabled him to be born. It's a long story, but the thing is that if it wasn't for her, he wouldn't have never even existed. So how can you put her in the category of just pure fault in her, because we'll get into why she did that, about the assassination. And the thing is that I said she made a way for the Zulu nation. And she did, because if it wasn't for her, Shaka would never have been born. And I said, can I say that? Would the king, would he be happy if I said that Inkubai made a way for the Zulu nation? And he said, as a royal family, we believe in women. He said King Shaka had women as the heads of the military barracks. He was a person who he was a respecter of women. And for me, this is really a very important point, because you can have a Western perspective, and you can have the Zulu perspective, and the Zulu perspective, and my perspective is that Shaka respected women. He gave them all the authority. He gave them the power and decisions. So all of this is that you have to really understand all of this, so that when I write music, that I write for full orchestra. So I don't write like a Maskande style of music, even though I've listened to it, I've produced it and recorded it. But my music is my music as classical music or full orchestra music. So I'm trying to convey in my music the truth and the story of Inkubai. So I'm on to my next picture here. Everybody know what that is? When you look at this picture, you go, what does this represent, this picture? What do you see in this picture? And what's more important, how do you feel when you see this picture? You know, this picture is very, very important to me. The first thing I would be thinking if I was you, I'd be going, what's wrong here? There's something wrong here. And this is the gravesite of Nandi. It took me years to find this site. And I promise you, to go there, you have to drive through bush. When I drove all the way through the bush, my car was all scratched on the side, but I was determined to get there. And see, Queen Nandi is a very special story. Queen Nandi means a lot. And you have to think about how important that is. I am a Canadian. I grew up on the snow banks of Canada. And 250 years later, this same woman, Nandi, is having an impact on me. She's changed my life, studying her and understanding who she was. So when I was there, don't tell anybody, I got a little rock, tiny little rock. And in my house, I have these stairs going down. There's a column there, and I put this rock there. And every day I walk and I see this rock, and I've called this the stone of humility. Because I'm thinking, when you look at this picture, it's a very humbling picture for a woman who has an impact on a Canadian 250 years later. That's power. That is a testimony that is unbelievable. Nandi, the impact of Nandi on the world is incredible. So I really have a very inspired by her, you know, and the problem that's with this picture, it doesn't say Queen Nandi, because she's not a queen. Because what I know is that the lobola was never paid to Senzo for her. That's why it's a problem. And when we spoke to the king about this, the king says that if once you understand the Zulu history, that the kings are one. So it's actually, Zwelithini could pay the lobola for Nandi, because the kings are one. And so somebody says to him, well, why don't you just pay the lobola? And we know that the king goes into prayer every year. And when he goes into prayer, he said, well, no one's telling me to pay for the lobola. I'm not going to pay for the lobola if the ancestors don't tell me to pay the lobola, you know. And as a foreigner and as a witness, when you go to this, it's very, very confusing. I mean, if you go to France and you see the tomb of Napoleon, it's like this massive building covered in gold and all this stuff. And, you know, if you go to America, and it's a completely different thing. But I'm going, that's Nandi's grave. It's very upsetting. I mean, I called people and did all this stuff and said, what's going on here? And then I found out that it's actually, it goes all the way back, that her lobola was never paid. So it's one of those very deep and complicated things. And so the history of her death is really, what can you say? It's very contradictory. A lot of people say this, and they say this about her death. And it's very difficult to split the difference between what is fact, what is oral, what's an opinion, all this stuff. It's a very difficult thing to do, to understand. So I'm going to play you this piece of music. So it's saying that Shaka received the news that Nandi was gravely ill, and he rushed to the palace between the late afternoon. Nandi was in a hut being filled with mourning women and smoke, and had to ventilate the hut to be able to breathe. Nandi had already been in a coma, and soon Shaka was given the news that Nandi was dead. Now, I'm going to play you a piece of music that's basically the lament of Nandi's death. So for me to write this music, I really, really have to understand everything that led up to that story, what everything occurred for me to write a piece of music. So one of the things I haven't told you is that when I wrote Nandi and when I wrote Inkabai, I knew the music, I knew the story, I could visualize the story and make the music happen. But the other thing was that I conceived of a dance, what I call an Afro-fusion dance of ballet and Afro dance. So every melody, every scene, there was dancing. And what was really important as a composer is that when you have the visualization and you're doing this, you gotta think, okay, what are the dancers doing? What's happening with the dancing? So I'm gonna share with this one. This scene, as we know, Nandi is dying and she's on her deathbed. So you can see, this is how I visualize when I do the music. She's on the deathbed at an angle. There's smoke all on the stage. You have all the dancers that are mourners around her. And then we have a dancer who's hidden behind Nandi. And so when I play this music, what happens is that when the music plays, all these dancers are in slow motion coming towards the audience, and they're crying. They're actually they're crying. And what happens is that this dancer that's hidden comes out from behind Nandi and starts dancing between all of these people who are mourning. And it represents her very last dance in life. It's her very last breath in life. And then it comes back and she goes there. So when it comes to composition and music, this is not playing around stuff. This is really deep, trying to understand what needs to be projected. So this is the kind of work that I have to do for every scene. So let me play this music. Dancers are coming towards the audience, and they're in slow motion, and they're in tears, knowing that the beloved, the most loved person, Nandi, is dying. And now we have Nandi, who's dancing with her very last breath. It's saying, this is my very last moment in life. So she does all the dancing, and she goes back to where the resting place. So one day I hope to get the funding to do an entire production of dance, music, and vocals. So write to your local politician, okay? Queen Nandi, I love Queen Nandi. Right, so I talked about dancing. I'm going to try to, I just wanted to say another thing about with dancing and music, when you compose music, is that with music and dance, there's a pace. Everything is a physical thing. So if I go, D-I-D-I, I can't just go D-I-E-I, I've got to D-I-E-I. So my body, the physical attributes of what I do, is connected. And this was one of the things Maestro Boyko was saying when the Eastern Cape was performing my music last month. You've got to connect everything. You just can't do it's all connected. You can't just have things that are just running without being in the concept. And so as a composer, the ideal of what I see is that people, when they listen to music and I play music, it's not as important for me to hear what they say, but I can tell by their body language. Their body language cannot lie. I can lie to you, but my body language cannot lie. So when I play a piece of music, I was playing it for a guy named Simon, who was the bass player for the orchestra who was murdered. Unfortunately, they never caught the guy or did anything about it. But I was playing my piece of music, and it was, I think it was this scene 2 of King Shaka where it has this. So it had all the stuff going on. And I could see his body language it was all there. And then I had something that I would put in there, and I saw his body stopped. It's like everything got like all out of whack. And I said, how is that? And I said, it's fine, it's good. And he was lying. Because his body told me that something was wrong here. So as a composer, it's really important. It's really a weird thing, you know. There's 2 things that were really weird for me, is that all these songs I had to sing in Zulu, because it wouldn't have made sense trying to write it in English. So I had to actually do the melodies and sing in Zulu, and thank God you never heard that. That was not a very pleasant thing to hear me sing in Zulu, but I had to. I had to sing all these things in Zulu, and it was like, oh, that wasn't good, you know? And so, let me just keep going here. I lost my thought there. First time, not too bad. Oh yeah, here it is. Good thing you have notes. So the other thing that's really important, composing music, is being able to conduct your own music. It's like I have, ba-dee-ya, ba-da, boom, boom, boom. It's like I can feel it, you know? You can't just go ba 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 dee da da dee. It doesn't work. You actually have to be bum 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 ba ba bum bum bum. You've got to have everything there so that if someone's dancing or yourself, it all has to flow. Because no matter what, with classical music, a lot of people don't tap their foot, but for me, the music, you actually have that constant syncopation underneath. So when I compose this music, dancing is very, very important. You know, even the conception of it, you know, that's left from right, from people coming. Even when I wrote when King Shaka was coming to the death scene, I had these drums that were boom, 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 boom. So when I was doing this, I had them very soft. So what was that saying? It was saying King Shaka's coming. This whole thing, he is coming. And when it was boom, 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 he's here. So these are things that you don't hear. These are things that you visualize. I visualize him coming, so what am I going to do? And he's arrived. And when he's arrived, King Shaka cried. I think so. I'm not sure. You know, maybe the men can tell me this. I was doing a commercial, and it was a commercial where there was a car accident. And just as we're recording, we're doing everything, and the car crashes, and there's no silence. It's just silent. And I said, guys, you're supposed to scream. You're supposed to, you know. I said, no, we're Zulu. They didn't shout or cry or anything, you know. It's like this concept, there's such a masculinity in the Zulu man and the Zulu warriors that, but I chose for him to cry. That when he came and saw that his mother was dying, so all this music represents him coming, and then you hear dia, dia. He's tearful, he's sad. So every melody, every piece of music has a concept and a story behind it. Okay, I'm going to keep going. There's somebody. Whose phone is that? It's okay, I'm not worried. Right, I have another rule. And this is what I was saying too. I have lots of rules that I have as a composer. This rule is you must know everything and you must know nothing. It's a very important philosophy and a concept. And the reason why you have to know everything is that what I was talking about earlier about your craft means you have to know your scales. You have to know your theory. You have to know your chords. Now for me, I see chord structure and then I see another chord structure on top of it. Then I can see a melody coming through this chord structure going into a whole different chord structure and coming through. So when it comes to music, I know music. I see it in all these different levels. So when it comes to music, I have an attitude, because I've perfected my craft, I know everything about music. Okay? So that's the one concept, that you have to know everything. And the reason is that when I go to an orchestra and they perform my music, you have some that got some pretty weird ideas and just are like very condescending. So I say to them, you know, I wrote this piece of music and there's 38,502 notes in this piece of music, and I know every note. You know what, Dean? I know if you're going to make a mistake. I know if you make a mistake. And you know where I got that whole concept? Don't mess with Ingbai. Don't mess with my music. You know, I have a problem. Another analogy is that, let's just say a person who's, say they're playing the clarinet, and the clarinet is like this little car, and it's so easy, you're driving. No problem, this is so easy. Now, in my music, you might be driving this little car, but there's a semi-truck coming at 100 miles an hour. It's just about to hit you, you know? So it may seem simple this way, but there's something coming that's going to really force you, you know, to be really confident. And this is where, you know, I have this problem, oh, this is so easy, this is so easy, and then I'm hearing it, oh, that doesn't sound good, you know? And I was saying to a friend of mine who's the choir conductor of the Gauteng choristers, I said, what's really important, you got to know the notes, but you got to know the space. You can sit there and go, oh, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then when you come back in again, if you don't know the space, that now it's da-da-da-da-da, it's a different rhythm. But they've forgotten about the space, they're just focusing on the notes. So the difficulty factor when it comes to music, as a composer and a musician, you got to know the notes, but you got to know the space. It's really an important concept. So don't mess with Inkabai and don't mess with my music. So another thing that's really important about knowing your music, this is for everybody. When it comes to composing and performing, there's 3 types of people that are going to talk to you about your music. So I'm not going to say there's these 3 types of people in here, but there are these 3 types of people. Person 1, very negative. No matter who you are as a performer, composer, hey Malvin, they're going to say, man, you didn't sound very good at all. Are you drunk? They're going to be negative. So you're dealing with people who are negative when it comes to your music. And 2 is that you've got someone whose ego is so huge, it's unwarranted, and they are just so arrogant. And they're just like, you're like, well, what did you think to my music? And they're like, you just walk away. They won't even do anything. Their ego is so huge. So that's another type of person you do. And the third one is somebody who has criticism that is truthful, but it's not harmful. So those are the 3 types of people that you're going to deal with when it comes to the arts. Negative, unwarranted ego, and people who can criticize truthfully without being harmful. So let's all hope that we're the third one. But I'm telling you that as a composer, man, I've been through hell. Don't think, don't think that composing, you see all these people, there's a lot of stuff a lot of things that you have to deal with, you know. So I'm trying to say that if you're a young person and you're having a career going forward, it's really quite easy. And the reason why it's so important to know everything about your music, and I've had this before, you may come up to me and say, Warren, blah, 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 and I'm going to say, you're speaking rubbish. You don't know what you're talking about. Because I know everything about my music. But the difference, though, is that I did listen to you. Now, that's the other side of the coin. The other side of coin of knowing everything is the humility of willing to listen. Because once I say I know everything, I'm not going to even listen to you. The ears are going to close up, and that's the end of it. You become the proverbial legend in your own mind. But what humility does, when you mix humility with knowing everything, I heard what you had to say, and it was really good. Or, I know everything about my music, and what you're saying is bull dust. That's the confidence that you have to have by the fact that you're perfecting your craft. You've got to know that one of these 3 people, when they're talking to you, you're going to know if they're speaking truth or they're just being negative or whatever it is. But if you don't understand your own music, then you've lost half of the battle. And if you become arrogant, you lost half of the battle. So you have to have the humility, and you have to know everything. It's a 2-sided coin that you actually have. Because the arts is difficult. The arts is the only form of making a living where you have to expose yourself. If you're a dentist, you go to the office and you pull people's teeth out. But as an artist, it's almost that you get on your stage, you have to take all your clothes off, and you perform. You have to expose yourself as an artist that this is who I am as a pianist. This is who I am as an opera singer. So you have to be, know what you're doing to protect yourself against those 3 types of people. Oh yeah, I have to tell you this story. It's like, my wife is my greatest critic. And with analogies, I said to her, I was really, really excited, and I came to her and said, listen to this, listen to this. And I said, what do you think, what do you think? And she goes, You know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like a gang, a motorcycle gang, with their motorbikes driving around and around. This is classical music. And I go, I get it. Do you know what she was saying? She's saying nothing is connected. In my music, there was nothing connected. It was just going around and around and around. But I got it. I understood what she was saying, you know? And the thing is that what's really important, the lesson that I learned there, you have to remember, when I composed King Shaka, it took me 3 years at 15 hours a day. That's serious work. And in that thing, this concept of humility and knowing everything, I would work on a piece of music for 3 weeks, like a section. I work on it for 3 weeks, and it was good. And when I played it for somebody, and they said, "Oh, that's good." So I went to my studio after 3 weeks, and I just deleted it. Just deleted it. Because good is not really good enough, is it? It's not really, I mean, there's a lot of people who can play the piano pretty good, eh, Melvin? There's a lot of good piano players. But the point is, there's a lot of good piano players. And that's not what we want. So as a composer, my thing is that if it's good, delete it. If it's exceptional, if it's exactly what you want and it's right, that is what you keep. So that whole story about the motorcycle gang, it really was very important to realize that when you compose, it really has to be exceptional. That's why I wish the sound wasn't so distorted when we play it. But I know it's okay. So, know everything, know nothing. Very important philosophy. So here we have the intriguing beauty of Queen Nandi at the riverside. So when you look at this picture, when I'm doing the music, I'm visualizing, okay, where are the warriors in this whole scene? So you see these guys up in the top left, physically strong warriors, perfect articulation, perfect in their unity. Then you have Nandi, the maidens, in a different side. So here I'm about to write this music, and I have to visualize everything. Okay, I'm just going to keep going quick. Right, this is what we call competition time. I have a question, and the answer is going to be in this music. But before I play the music, I have a question. I have this book that I produced with Nyosi, who is the King's praise singer. It's in Zulu. I have a question, and whoever can answer it, from my understanding, I'm going to give him this book. It's not a trick question, it's not a philosophical question, but it's a hard question that you really got to think about it. And this is the question. Why is it that some people hate specific genres of music? Say 2 examples. A lot of people hate rap. A lot of people hate classical music. For the free book, what is the answer? I'm going to get you thinking. You can just shout it out. I'll know if you're right. Yes? Why? Okay, just speak a bit louder. You're close, but not exactly right.
Okay, I was saying that some music does not align with certain people. Like, I can listen to rap, but if it doesn't align with me, it's not the kind of music that I love. I'm not gonna listen to it again.
Okay, great answer, but not the right one. Not what I'm looking for, but it's a great answer. Yes? I'm getting you to think, because it's a visualization thing. Yes?
Music is food to the soul. So if it doesn't feed what is inside you, if it doesn't resonate with your spirit, you will most likely not like it.
Okay, great answer, but it's the wrong answer.
Oh.
Competition, free, okay, go ahead. Great answer, but it's wrong. It's just, okay, think of my question. Why is it that certain people hate classical music? It's the why. Why do they hate it? You said it doesn't align, it doesn't feed the soul, but why? Why is it?
Classical is classic. You say it yourself. Classic is classic. So it associates with.
Okay, we had association before, but that's not right.
It associates with humor and with a personality. So you grow with age.
Okay, last one. Yes? Yeah, no, you? I'm going to have to use it for another competition. Yes? Okay, exposure. That's a very good answer, but it's still the wrong answer. Okay, we're going to have another easier competition that's not so philosophical. But I did get you to think. And that's really great, because this is about thinking and visualization. I'm going to use you two as my example. The reason why you hate rap music is because it sounds all the same to you. The reason why you hate classical music is because it sounds all the same to you. People who say that they don't like rap, it sounds all the same. Classical music, it's all da-da-da-da-da, it's all the same. And it's true. People who hate certain types of music, it just sounds all the same to them. It's all the same. So as a composer, what is the fight against that? It's called contrast. Did I write it up there? No. As a composer, you have to understand retention, and you also have to understand contrast. Now, when you talk about a music, a song, if you look at the verse, what is the verse? The verse is interesting. It's saying, like, Melvin is the greatest pianist in the country. That's very interesting. Then we have to go to the hook, which is what we call the familiarity. And what is the familiarity? He's great. He's great. Melvin is great. You know, it's something that's memorable. It's an easy thing. But you can see there's a complete difference between Melvin, as Melvin. Sorry, I'm picking on you today. But you see there's a huge contrast in talking about him as a pianist. But if the whole song was Melvin, it sounds all the same. So as a composer, it's really important. Even as a performer, as a singer. Imagine being a singer. I tell you, do you all know Pretty Yende? Okay, I did an exercise. I won't tell you this long story. I called her once, and I spoke to her for a long time. And I said to her, you know, when I recorded very famous opera singers and her, and what I did in my studio is I slowed it down to a snail pace. And when I looked at the waveforms of these artists, so it was like, D-I-E-I-E-I, da-dee-I-E-I-E-I, the waveforms were exactly the same. But Pretty Yende, D-I-E-A-E-A, D-I-E-A, it was, every waveform was shaped differently. Now when you're talking about D-I-E-A, 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 she could still shape each note at that speed, which was really, really incredible. So, contrast. You can sing da-da-da-da-da, or you can sing each note with flair and contrast. So let me play you this little piece of music. This is Nandi and the women by the river, and the men are coming. That really bothers me. Is that Kurt? Please fix that. So you have, now the men. Women. Look. Okay, it's painful. So you're having this, the women, and you have the men doing. So you have two extremes, contrasts of the, and you have the other side, boom, bee, boom, 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 bee, boom. Now, if I did this whole scene just da, dee, dee, da, it would be, I hate that. Why? It sounds all the same. So contrast is really important. It's kind of like with a piano, you're playing the right hand, but the left hand has to be independent and different. And the real skill about that is that they're really independent. You know, that's the thing. So contrast is really, really important when it comes to composing music. How am I doing for time? Okay, right. So what I said earlier is that Shaka took 3 years to compose. And so this is where, how deep are you willing to go into your music? You know, when you start to compose or perform something, you have to get it to the point where it's perfect. You can't go, it's good. It has to be, you have to really jump into the perfection of your performance and your music. So I want to go into this scene here, King Shaka, scene 5. I think I'd rather just talk than to play it. Okay. Secrets have wings. This is scene 5 of the King Shaka, and this is a very pivotal scene. This is the biggest scene probably in history. And I'm going to explain this scene to you, is that I've had the opportunity that when I speak to historians, culture experts, I always ask questions. And I always will ask the question, who killed King Shaka? Who killed him? And so most people know that Inkabai was the mastermind. But there was 3 people who killed him. Who were they? The 2 half-brothers and Mbopa. Now my question is, who is Mbopa? You know, and this is the thing that when people ask me, why are you doing this? Why are you writing about Zulu history? I said, okay, let's talk about this. And this is what I say, okay, who's Mbopa? And why did he actually kill King Shaka? Now that's a very interesting story. I'll tell you what I believe, is that the question now is, who is his mother? Who is his mother? Anybody? Yeah, Mbopa's mother. Who's his mother? Satai. Who's Satai? Satai was the prophetess. And what did she prophesy? Because in my music of King Shaka I, the opening scene is called the prophecy. Because Shaka was prophesied. And who did the prophecy? Prophetess Satai. So my whole scene one is that Satai comes to the royal court and she prophesies to King Jama. They weren't happy. They thought they're going to say it was him. But she said, no, a new king will be born. A new nation will be created. A new form of warfare. All these things that Shaka did were all prophesied by Satai. I'm going to go into this story if it's okay, because this scene is really the pivotal scene. From this scene, it led to King Shaka's assassination. So what happens is that Mbopa, this is all the question, who is Mbopa? When they were children, Mbopa and Shaka were childhood friends. And we all know that King Shaka was teased and taunted. So Mbopa used to say to Shaka, you are only king because my mother prophesied it. That's the only reason you're going to be king. Now, I kept doing that all the time to Shaka. So you know what Shaka did? He grabbed his arm, Mbopa's arm, and he put his arm in the fire. He never teased Shaka again. So Mbopa's arm was completely burnt from elbow to wrist. So he never teased Shaka again. So now the question is, why did Mbopa kill Shaka? And Mastermind in Kabai said, look at your arm. Who did that? Who did that to your arm? That's the person that we need to assassinate, is the one who did that. She was clever. She was smart. So that's the whole backstory of where Mbopa comes into this thing, secrets have wings. So what happens, the secret is that we all know that King Shaka didn't have children, didn't want children. He had them, but didn't want them. So another thing of this story is that when you look at the Western view of Shaka, is that children were killed. But the traditional story, which I believe in, is that the children were sent to Swaziland and they lived in anonymity. Nobody knew who they were. That's what I believe. So Mazibuko was going to have a child of Shaka's. And Mazibuko having the child is top secret. This is not information that was going around. And the thing is that she was hiding with Nandi, and Nandi wanted to be a grandmother. And she wanted Shaka to have a child. It doesn't really say that she wanted him to have a wife, just to have the child and for her to be the granddaughter. So Mbopa, in all these conversations, who was in that conversation? Mbopa's wife. So Mbopa was like, what's going on? There's something really going on here. And then he's like, oh, they're talking about the king. They're talking about the king. And it's like he realizes that they're hiding the child. So what does Mbopa do? He runs to the king and says, I've got something to tell you. Because he wanted to be like, you know, like a tattletale. He wants to be the one who says, I'm really loyal to the king. So he told the king, and the thing that's really bad is that what he did is that he was like a knife on a loaf of bread. He just cut it in half. And he put this space between the mother and the son. Because Shaka said, I'm not having any children, and she wanted to have the children. So he created this wedge of anger between the mother and the son. So this is very pivotal, because when Shaka comes to confront his mother, They're angry. This is a very serious situation that, mother, how could you do this? I am the king. You cannot go against me. And this was a huge fight. And so Mbopa created a wedge between the son and the mother. So in this music, which I'm going to play, what happens is the fact that Mbopa tells the king what's going on. The king comes to Nandi and says all this dialogue, and I'm going to say some of the dialogue when I play the music. But the problem is that Queen Nandi dies. You know, in this scene, in the argument, she ends up that she's dying. So my thing is, I've spoken to a lot of people about this, and I've never said publicly my opinion, so I'm going to say this is not my opinion. That my understanding and what some people believe is that in this argument, that maybe Shaka, in his anger, hit his mother with a stick. Maybe the stick had some rust on it, like a rusty nail, because Finn said she died of dysentery. So it's possible that a rusty nail caused her to die, which means it's possible accidentally that in this argument that was the beginning of her death. Now, I'm not saying that's true because I wasn't there, you know, but there's that possibility, and it's just a possibility that she just got dysentery and she died. But the thing is that from this point onward, from this argument, it leads all the way to the assassination. And what I said to you in the very beginning, what is the most important thing about music? Beginning, middle, end. So music always has to have the story. So let me play you this music. Hopefully it won't be distorted. Let's see, here we go. Let me go back. You can see the pace is right. Gossip travels fast. Gossip is not a slow thing. Mbopa, in front of the king. King, we have a problem here. Your mother is she's disobeyed your word. I'm your follower. I follow what you say, but your mother, she's doing the wrong thing here. So he's created this wedge between the mother and the son. Now we have music. Remember what I was talking about, retention. And Mbopa speaks. Now we have just music, so now we can remember what he just said. Okay, I know what he said. But now, it's King Shaka's turn. You see, King Shaka is coming. Now he's got to speak to his mother. He's like, what the heck, Mom? It's like, what are you doing? I am the king. And here you're disobeying my word of who's this child you're hiding? What's all this nonsense that you're doing behind my back? So he's conveying his feelings, all this stuff between his mother. And who's the cause of all this anger? Mbopa. Now it's the queen's turn. She says, son, from birth we have known that you are fearless. And I have protected you from everyone. I've always been with you. And you know that my love for you will never end. But I want you to have a son. I want to be a grandmother. You know? It's like there's this whole conversation that's going on between the mother and the son. So there's the whole story is told through the music between the mother and the son, and that it ends with the soprano song saying, you know, there's something going on here. Because he created a problem between the mother and the son. So that is my interpretation of this beginning point. So for me to create this story and to understand it, it's taken years of many conversations and trying to understand it. So it's a wild, and the thing that's really amazing about it is that it's all true. Okay, how are we doing for time? I think I've got lots more, but I'm just going to end with this one thing about that Bob Marley thing. And then I got to figure out how we're going to give that book away. The book is great. So in the Bob Marley movie, there's a really great thing that he says. It's the ending of the movie. He's coming out of the house, and he's playing the guitar, and everybody's around the campfire. Who can ever say this punchline, they'll get the book. So they're going, wow, that song is so great. That's really awesome. And the guy says, when did you write that, Bob? And the answer is, if you watch the movie, what is his answer? When did you write that song, Bob? It's the most beautiful answer, and it's very pertinent to what I've experienced with you today. He says, my whole life. My whole life I've been writing that song. And what you've heard today, everything you did, I didn't just write it from the last couple of years. My whole life, since I've been here, since 1987, the second day that I was here from a country, I knew nothing about apartheid because I was a music student. As a music student, you don't think of anything else but your music. Second day I came here, went to the beach, and I'm hearing, I'm going, what is that? And I go, and it's the Zionists, you know, and they're chasing the devil away. They're all, yeah. And all of that, every experience that I've ever had comes into this understanding of who is King Shaka, who is Nandi, who is Inkabai, who is Mbopa. What is all of this? And all of that, my whole life is written into every note, you know? So when people talk to me about my music, I say, you're part of my music now. You know, it's incorporating. So for me, that line, my whole life was just, I don't know if I cried, but it was just like really moving, that revelation that your whole life, if you're a performer, I want to say one last thing. There's another work that I'm hoping to do. I've asked for the funding, which for the orchestra, KZN be able to perform by March next year, which is called Rise of the Hunter. And it's a story about the sand, but it's also an international piece about First Nations of the world. And in Canada, the First Nations were the ones who, there's a term called skywalker, which is the guys, the ironworkers who built the skyscrapers in North America. So these guys actually had built the Twin Towers. And when the Twin Towers came down, these people, these First Nation Indians, who've been oppressed for 300, 400, 500 years, they came to the rescue of their oppressors. And it was really, it's like an incredible thing to rise above the oppression, and they came to that building and rescued these people. I was thinking, God, you know, that was the ending of my music, this whole thing about coming and aiding the oppressor, and I was like, that's just unbelievable, you know? And when I was in New York City last year, I went to, there's the 911 site. They put in a new building, and this building is the most incredible building you'll ever see. It's like a dinosaur with wings. It's really hard to describe, but it's the most phenomenal building. And I was thinking, imagine the architect. There's a room full, this is going to be a huge room full of people, and they say, we want you to build a building that represents the evil, that represents the overcoming of the oppression, the overcoming of something that is bad, and to represent hope, represent a brilliant future. I'm thinking, imagine being that architect. There's your brief. And he built this building, which is right there in New York, and it's unbelievable, really unbelievable. And there's a moral to this story. If you are in the arts, when I think about this and I look at this, I really cry, because it's the most, that whole thing that happened and these bad things that happen and how you can overcome these bad things. And this architect building this building that is so phenomenal that it will be there for hundreds of years as a testimony of what actually happened there. And I said, you know, why is this so important to me? Because if you're a performer, if you're not giving your 100% while you're on the stage, get off the stage. If you are not like this architect who could design a building that would last for hundreds of years and understand and comprehend such the most difficult brief, most difficult brief, make a building representing that. That's unbelievable. I said, as an artist, if I'm on the stage, I see that building, and I see the commitment by that architect to build the greatest building. You have to be that mentality. If you're on the stage and you're just kind of going through the motions, then get off the stage. Because people are paying money for you to not even do your best. It's not right. It's not right at all. So as a performer, perfect your craft so that when you're on the stage, man, it's happening. You're giving it your all. And that's what I learned from that building. Give it your all. So let me end with that, about giving it your all. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. There we go. Thank you. Any questions? It's all over the place there. Do you want to close up, AJ? A lot of stuff there. Philosophy, composition, perspective, retention. Yes. Where's the mic?
Thank you very much, Warren, for a beautiful presentation. I'm not a musician, I'm not a composer, I'm a social linguist, but I was listening to you. And whilst I was listening to you, I had to call my colleague who's sitting next to me, who is teaching film for our students, because like as I was listening to you, I felt, he needs to be here. He needs to hear what you are sharing with us today, because the visualization that you're talking about today, for our students who are making film, I know that like they're handling the camera and doing all sort of stuff. They will sit and do the editing and all of that. But at the end of it all, either it is a film or it is a documentary, there should be music behind everything that they are doing. So that is why I brought him here. His name is Mzwandile Makanya. Mzwandile, I don't know if you have any questions, or comment based on the presentation by Warren, but I was really, really listening, and thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Prof. Yeah, as I was listening here, it's very interesting how, I'm also not from music, film, but it's very interesting how I'd say the disciplines are intertwined, because you were like saying how when you're creating, you need to understand the character basically, and the history, and basically that's what I always tell the students, especially when it comes to script writing or story writing, that there's a writer called Leos Egri that he talks about understanding the psychology, the physiology, the sociology. So I always say you have to understand the ologies of that person for you to understand how should respond or respond in a particular context. So in this case to how music should respond into particular moments, say the moment of Shaka and Nandi or a different moment. So I think this is like I'm seeing very strong relations. And also I was just looking, so I know, Ruben, we're not supposed to speak to you when you're on your camera, but we are on this symposium where it was called Audio Description Symposium. So it has to do with film, but with basically blind people. And then the core thing with them also, they wanted to be included or access into the film space. And then so there was even this guy from the US who's hailed the founder of Audio Description. And the issue of visualization was the major thing. So I'm having a meeting with them soon, and then this is very powerful because that's going to be part of my conversation with them. That not just ways of describing, okay, this person does this, because that's very key for them, but also the sounds and the background and everything. So yeah, this is very, very powerful things.
Nothing from the young people in the back? No questions? Oh, here we go. Composers. All right, let's see what... We got to still give this book away.
It's not a question, Warren. It's briefly compliment.
Yes.
About how you take life. I'm Zulu, and then you briefing it to me, and then I have to teach that to my kids. What Shaka, how Nandi, blah, 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 and then everything. But I'm an artist, as in not a performer, unfortunately. I'm an artist, I draw. I'm a creator, rather a 3D sculptor type of a person. So I'm a very different artist to a performer, and then articulating type of a person. But I listen to music, I love music, like classic, you name it. You name Zulu, you name Roman. I don't care what you say, but I listen to music. That's what my life is. So, with what you have just profoundly displayed, you know, I fell short of your, you know, of course, you're Canadian, you can't pronounce a lot of words in Zulu. I'm Zulu, profound, and I like a person that says something with substance. Substance means that you say, where you come from, Shaka, Unandi, blah, 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 and everybody, you say it properly. I didn't like that, but I understand where you're standing, and I respect your standing. even though if I brought my kid here, I think we wouldn't find what I was expecting. In that so saying, I respect what you're saying, I respect what you're doing, I respect every bit of a moment that you are doing. Musically, I'm sure you are doing what you do best. As an artist sitting here, I want you to represent me. I'm pleading as an artist who's drawing, whose art is like your background. In fact, where you're standing, I will be putting a mural behind you that is Warren orientated. And I would love that. Yeah.
You know what? I need to show you the pictures of this building as an artist. I have them in my phone, and I would love to show them to you as an artist and see what you think to these buildings. You know, it is art. It's all different dimensions, you know. And it's like the thing about film and art and what I was saying about music is looking at it multidimensionally. You can't look at notes on a page or a picture in a frame. You know, the people, when they film and when they draw, you have to see it almost first. You know, it's almost like a camera. When you take a shot, you're trying to capture a moment. But I think when it comes to film, you really have to see it. You have to visualize it. Even with art, you visualize. So I was really trying to get across today to change the mindset and to bring in the strength of yourself by visualizing. You know, the thing about, have you ever thought about the fact why Shaka was never, he was killed, but why was he never killed before then? He had the ability to read body language. If there's a word for it, like the FBI go to a school that allows them to say, oh, this, if you do all these different body gestures, they know what's going on. They know you're about to do something. King Shaka was so far ahead of them. You know, they said that King Shaka, he could read every situation. He was so great at reading body language, they feared him, saying he has Sangoma powers. He could read your body. He could read your mind. You know, those Sangoma powers, you know. And all of it really has to do with visualization. Even when he went into battle, I didn't even go into all of that. There's so many things that I just left out, but there's a scene there of scene 4 about the great battle. And he just says, this is what's, he could see everything happening before it even happened. To the, you know, imagine in war, there's the river. He positioned all his warriors so that when Zwede came, and when they were up to the waist in water, they were what you call sitting ducks. And when they were there, they just took them out. Because he visualized everything before it even happened, you know. So to me, I'm hoping that you really get this visualization thing into your spirit. Yes? Is that it? Okay. Thank you. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. If anybody wants to yell at me or say anything, it's okay. All right, thanks.
Okay, it's on. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. Thank you. Thank you very much, Warren. Let's give Warren, I know many of the students and staff have left, but let's give Warren another big round of applause. Thank you very much, Warren, for sharing with us your insights into your work that you have been doing over the years, and we really, really respect you. And this is not the last time you are here at UKZN. As you have heard, and I have brought Mr. Mzwandile Makanya here to listen to you, we teach film here at UKZN, and our intention is that we grow the study of film so that like we have a fully fledged program in film studies. And visualization is something big, and we will be bringing you back and to share with our students that we teach the aspects of what we have shared right now, because I feel that like this is very, very, very important, and your understanding of history and you intertwine that with your knowledge of composition, music composition is very, very vital. So we thank you very, very much. And from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, from the School of Arts, this is a legal token of appreciation.
Oh, thank you. Very kind.
We are saying thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much. Yes. Prof. Matonzi, please come. Let's take a picture. Prof. Matonzi is our retired professor of African languages. I'm happy that he is here with us today. Prof, please do come here. Mzwandile, please come. I see Miranda has left, the cluster leader.